Hello students, good morning everyone. So we will start a new chapter today, that is chapter number 4 of science, and this is of class 4th, okay? And the name of the chapter is solids, liquid and gases. The name of the chapter is solids, liquids and gases. This is your 4th chapter, okay? So students, let us see the contents of this chapter. So students, in this chapter we will study about the states of matter, okay? Then changes of the states, how the states of matter changes its form. Then what are solute, solvent and what is solution? What do you mean by solute, solvent and solution? Then what are the different processes to separate a substance? Okay, so these are the contents that we are going to study today. States of matter, changes of states, solute, solvent and solution, and separation of substances. So students, let us begin with matter. There are different states of matter. Yes or no? Now what is this matter? What do you mean by matter? Any substance that has mass and occupies space is called matter. Any substance in this world like trees, water, then table, chair, pencil, rubber, okay, everything around us, any substances that has mass means which has got weight, whether it is light or whether it is heavy, anything which has got weight, that is known as mass, and that occupies space, that means it has a space, it can occupy space. A table in a room has its own space, yes or no? A room is a empty place, and when you put a table in it, it occupies a space in the room. So any substance which has mass and a table is heavy, yes or no? It has got weight and it occupies a space in a room. So that substance is known as matter. Like a tree, then pencil, book, eraser, all these substances, water, all these substances are known as matter. Why? Because they have mass and they occupy space. That is why they are known as matter. Okay. Now the three states of matter are, matter is divided into three states. Those are solids, liquids and gases. Matter are divided into three states. Those are solids, liquids and gases. Okay. Then all substances is made up of small particles, and the substances is made up of small particles. The matter is made up of small particles. Okay, very minute and tiny particles that cannot be seen with the naked eye. We cannot see the particles. And these substances are made up of what? These are made up of very small, very minute particles. Okay. Then the particles are arranged in different way in solids, liquid and gases, and these particles by which the substances or the matter is made up of, these are arranged in different ways. In solid, these are arranged in different way. In liquid and in gases, these particles are arranged in different ways. Okay? What is matter? Matter is the substance that has mass and that can occupy space. Okay. There are three states of matter. Those are solid state, liquid state and gaseous state. Then all matter, that means all substances, is made up of particles. The matter or substances, these are made up of particles. Particles are very small, very minute. We cannot see them. Okay. Then the particles are arranged in different ways in solids, liquids and gases. In solid, the particles are arranged in different way. In liquids, the particles are arranged in different manner, and in gaseous also, the particles are differently arranged. Okay, so this is all about matter. Matter is something that has got mass, which has got weight. It can be heavy or it can be light, and that can occupy space. Okay, so that is called as matter. Now students, let us study about solid. What are solids? States of matter. The first state of matter is solid. Now what is solid? Solid are substances in which the particles are packed very close to each other. These solids are substances where the particles by which the matter is made up of, the substance is made, they are very closely packed with each other. Okay. Then solids are usually hard and have a fixed shape. The solids are very hard, like table, chair, tree. Yes or no? These are some examples of solids which are very hard and they have got a definite shape, a fixed shape. Yes or no? A book has got its shape, a table has got its shape, and they are heavy, they have got mass, and they can also occupy space. That is why they are matter. And solids are substances where the particles by which this matter is made up of, they are very closely packed. Since they are very closely packed, that is why the solids are hard and they have a fixed shape. Understood? Some can change their shape when we apply force, but some solids, they can change their shape when we apply force. Okay, a rubber ball can change its shape when we press it. Yes or no? A rubber ball can change its shape when we press it, but it is a solid. Why? Because it has got a definite shape and it is hard and rigid. Okay? Some solids, they can change their shape when apply force. When we apply force, when we press the rubber ball, it changes its shape. On applying force, some solids may change its shape. For example, see, dough can be rolled out into chapatis. Dough means the flour that we knead with water. It is a solid and it can be rolled out into chapatis. The chapati that you eat, it is made up of wheat flour, yes or no? And what do we do with the wheat flour? First we knead it, putting some water in it. And after that we roll into small balls and we roll it out into chapatis. Okay? Then an interesting shape can be made out of clay. Clay is also a solid. When the clay is wet, we can make different kinds of shape with the clay. Yes or no? So these are some examples of solids that can change their shape when we apply force. Then some solids on applying force can be bent or broken, like glass. When we throw a glass, it breaks and glass is a solid. Yes or no? We are applying force in throwing, and since we are throwing the glass by applying force, that glass breaks. When it hits the floor or it hits the wall, that glass breaks. Why? Because we are applying force. Okay, and some solids can be bent, like if we bend a plastic ruler, it can be bent easily. Yes or no? We are applying force, we are giving energy, we are applying energy to bend that plastic ruler. So when we are applying force, that plastic ruler will bend. Okay, and a plastic ball or a rubber ball, when we press it, it changes its shape. It flattens down. Yes or no? So these are some examples of solids that can be broken or bent or that can change shape when we apply force. examples of solid are pencil, book, chair, marble, etc. These are some examples of solids. Understood? And now students, what is liquids? What do you mean by liquid? Liquid are substances in which the particles are not very closely packed. In solids, the particles, the matter which is made up of, the particles are very closely packed. But in liquid, the particles are not very closely packed. Okay, the particles are not very closely packed in liquids. Since the particles are not very closely packed, they have no fixed shape and they can flow. Since the particles of the liquids are not very closely packed, that is why they have no fixed shape and they can flow easily. Understood? They take the shape of the container they are poured into, and these liquid, they can take the shape of the container in which they are poured into. For example, if we pour some orange juice into a glass, it will take the shape of the glass. And if we pour it into a bowl, it will take the shape of the bowl. Yes or no? If we pour some water or juice or milk into the glass, it will take the shape of the glass, the cylindrical shape. And if we put it into the bowl, it will spread out. It will take the shape of the bowl. So, a liquid have got no fixed shape. It takes the shape of the container in which it is kept or in which it is poured. Okay? And it can flow. Okay? Then liquids can flow from one place to another and so are called fluids. These liquids are called fluids because they can flow from one place to another. If you pour water into a glass from a bottle, it pours down. Yes or no? It do not get stuck. But a solid, can you pour down a solid? We cannot pour a solid into a glass because the particles of solids are very closely packed. Since the particles of liquids are not very closely packed, that is why it can flow. And this flowing property of this liquid is called as fluid. It has a property of flowing easily. That is why liquids are also called as fluids. F-L-U-I-D-S. Fluids. Understood? And examples of liquids are milk, water and juices. The examples of liquids are milk, water and juices. Okay? Liquids are substances in which the particles are not very closely packed. Since the particles are not very closely packed, that is why they do not have a fixed shape and they can flow easily. Okay? It takes the shape of the container in which it is kept. For example, if you keep the orange juice in glass, it will take the shape of the glass. If you pour the orange juice into bowl, it will take the shape of the bowl. Okay? Since it has the flowing property, that is why liquids are also called as fluids. And some examples of liquids are milk, water and juices. These are some examples of liquid. All the watery substances are liquid and liquid are also called as fluids. Understood? And now students, what do you mean by gases? What are gases? Gases are substances in which the particles are very loosely packed comparing to that of solid and liquid. In solid, the particles are very closely packed. In liquids, the particles are less closely packed. But in gases, the particles are very loosely packed. That means the gas has no definite shape, no volume, nothing. They can occupy all the available space in the container. If a gas is kept in a container, it will occupy all the available space into the container. Why? Because the particles of the gases are very loosely packed. That is why these gases can flow anywhere. For example, I give you an example of an incense stick. You know what is incense stick? The agarbatti that we use while doing puja. When you lit that incense stick, the gas comes out, yes or no? And that gas is spread all over the room. That is why the room is fragmented with the good fragrance of that incense sticks. Yes or no? Since the gas has the particles of the gas are freely moving, that is why the gas occupies all the space that is available inside the room, and hence the room is fragranced with a good smell. Understood? See, air is actually a mixture of gas such as oxygen, nitrogen and carbon dioxide. Air is also a gas, and air is a mixture of which gases? Oxygen, nitrogen and carbon dioxide. Air is also a gas which is a combination of oxygen, carbon dioxide and nitrogen. We breathe in oxygen, we breathe out carbon dioxide, yes or no? So these are the gases. Then fluids include both liquid and gases. Even in water, it contains both liquid and gas. Water contains oxygen, yes or no? Since water is fluid, the particles of water are freely moving, that is why it is called as fluid, and it also contains gas like oxygen, and it also may contain carbon dioxide also. Okay, then air and cooking gas are some examples of gases. These air and cooking gas are some examples of gases. I hope you understood this. Now let's move to the next point. And now students, changes of state. The states of the matter can also change themselves. How? How the states of a matter can change themselves. How this solid, liquid and gas can change themselves. Okay? See, matter can change its form from one state to another. That means matter can change its form from one state to another. From solid, it can be changed into liquid, and liquid state can be changed into gaseous state. How? The different processes by which the states of matter change its form are. These are the processes by which the states of the matter can be changed. The first point is melting. Second is vaporization. The third one is condensation, and the fourth one is solidification. So these are the different processes by which the states of matter can change its form from one state to another. The first process is melting, the second one is vaporization, then condensation, then solidification. Now what happens in melting? See. Now melting is the process by which a solid changes into a liquid is called melting. What is melting? The process by which a solid state can change into a liquid state, that is called as melting. And how can it be done? For example, say when you take out an ice cube from the freezer and leave it in a room temperature, you will notice that the solid ice changes into liquid, water. Yes or no? When you take out some ice from the freezer, the ice is in the form of liquid. Why? Because the particles there are closely packed, and hence it has got a fixed shape. Okay? And since the particles are closely packed, that is why these ice are in the form of solid inside the freezer when it is inside the fridge. But when you take out the ice, it melts down into the room temperature. When you increase the temperature, it melts. The ice starts to melt when you keep it outside the room. Yes or no? And what will you notice? That the solid ice has turned into liquid, that is water. So this is the process of melting, where the solid is changed into liquid state. Okay, where the solid state is changed into liquid state when the temperature increases. When the temperature increases is called as melting. Okay. And now students, what do you mean by vaporization? This vaporization is also another process where the liquid is changed, the liquid state is changed into the gaseous state. Okay. See, the process by which a liquid changes into gas is called vaporization. Vaporization is the process in which the liquid state is changed into gaseous state. Okay. When you increase the temperature of the liquid will change into gaseous state by vaporization. Vaporization occurs by evaporation or boiling. For example, when you boil water, when you keep on boiling water, when you increase the temperature of the water by boiling. And how do you increase? When you put the water into the gas stove, into a container, and you lit the gas. The water boils when you increase the temperature, and when it keeps on boiling, the water gets evaporated. That means it changes into gaseous. It changes into vapor. Yes or no? The gas comes out. Yes. So this is the process by which a liquid changes into gaseous state. And vaporization occurs when evaporation and boiling is done. When evaporation or boiling happens, then vaporization process occurs. Okay, and in vaporization the liquid is changed into gaseous state. Then the second one is condensation. What do you mean by condensation? Vaporization is the increase of temperature. In vaporization the temperature increases, and in condensation the temperature decreases. That means there is less temperature. The process by which a gas changes into liquid on cooling is called condensation. What is condensation? The process in which the gas changes into liquid on cooling. On cooling means the temperature is decreased. Here the temperature is not increased. It is coming down. The temperature is decreased. Cooling, that means, is called condensation. Okay. For example, see, when you hold a cold steel plate over a pot of boiling water, you will notice tiny drops of water condensing on the tray. When you cover the boiling water with a cold steel plate, after some time what will you see? After the water is cooled down, you will see tiny droplets of water on the steel plate. On the back side of the steel plate, you will see tiny droplets of water. That means when the gas is cooled down, when the temperature is cooled down, that gas, it condenses into liquid. It turns into liquid. The gas turns into liquid on cooling. Okay, when we decrease the temperature of the gas, it cools down and it turns into liquid. So this process is called as condensation. Understood? And what is solidification? Solidification is the process by which a liquid changes into solid on cooling. Is called solidification. Solidification is the process in which the liquid state is changed into the solid state on cooling. When we decrease the temperature of the liquid, it changes into solid. For example, freezing of water changes into ice cube. Yes or no? Freezing of water, when you put the water into the fridge or into the ice tray, the water it change into ice. Yes or no? So the liquid is changing into solid. Water is in the liquid form and ice is in the solid form. So solidification is the process where liquid changes into solid on cooling, and the example is the ice. When we put water into the fridge, it changes into ice. Okay. So these are the different processes by which the states of matter can be changed from one form to another. The first one is melting, then vaporization, condensation and solidification. Understood? And now students, what are solute, solvent and solution? This solute, solvent and solution are the words which are related with the liquid state of matter. With which state? These are related with the liquid state of matter. Okay. Now what is solution? A solution is formed when two or more substances mix together such that they are evenly distributed. Evenly distributed means equally divided. Okay. Solution is formed when two or more substance is mixed together and such that the substances are evenly distributed, equally divided. Okay. See, now what are solute? Solute are substances that dissolve. Is called solute. For example, sugar. Sugar is a solute. And what is solvent? The substance in which the solute dissolves is called solvent. Solute is always in less quantity and solvent is in more quantity. When solvent is more, then only a solute can be dissolved in it. You cannot dissolve sugar into little amount of water. Yes or no? For that you need more solvent and less solute. See, sugar is a solute and water is a solvent. When you mix sugar and water together, it becomes a solution. It becomes a sugar solution. Yes or no? So, this is the example of solute, solvent and solution. Solution is formed when two or more substances are mixed together and they are evenly distributed. Evenly distributed means equally distributed in the water. And solute are those which dissolve themselves, which are dissolved, and solute are the substances which dissolve themselves. And solvent in the substances in which the solute dissolves is called as solvent. Solvent is the substance in which the solute dissolves. Alright. Then a solute and solvent together form a solution. As I already told you, together a solute and solvent, it forms a solution. I give you an example. Solute is sugar and solvent is water. When you mix sugar with water, it becomes a sugar solution. Yes or no? So, solute and solvent together becomes a solution. It forms a solution. Understood? See, for example, it is there. If we add salt to water, the water turns salty. And if we add sugar to warm milk, it turns sweet milk. Here, salt and sugar are the solutes and water and milk are the solvents. The salty water and the sweet milk are solutions. Yes or no? If you mix salt with water, it gives you a salty solution. It gives you a salt solution. And here salt is the solute and water is the solvent. Similarly, sugar and milk. Here sugar is the solute and milk is the solvent. When you mix both sugar and milk, it gives you a sweet milk solution. Yes or no? So together this solute and solvent makes a solution. Understood? And now students, let us study about the different process of separation of substances. There are different ways by which we can separate the substances. Okay. So see, there are two kinds of substances. Those are soluble and insoluble. Soluble means which can mix them completely, which can be mixed or which can be soluble completely. And insoluble means which cannot be mixed completely. Those are the soluble and insoluble substances. See, what are soluble substances? Soluble substances that dissolve completely in a solvent to form a solution. For example, salt and sugar are soluble substances as they are soluble in water. What are soluble substances? Which dissolve themselves completely. When you dissolve sugar or salt into water, you cannot differentiate the water and salt. Can you differentiate the water and salt or sugar and salt if it is dissolved in the water? No, we cannot separate it. So these are called as soluble substances. For example, salt and sugar are soluble substances as they are soluble in water. It can be soluble in water, that is why salt and sugar are called as soluble substances. And what are insoluble substances? Substances that do not dissolve completely in a solvent. The substances which do not dissolve completely, that means little bit of the substances are left. They do not dissolve themselves completely. Those substances are called as insoluble substances. For example, sand and chalk are insoluble substances as they are insoluble in water. When you mix sand in water, what happens? The sand gets dissolved completely? No. It settles down, making the water dirty. Yes or no? And if you dissolve chalk into water, can it get dissolved completely? No, it will not get dissolved. So these are the insoluble substances. Okay? Soluble substances are those that dissolve completely in a solvent. Solvent means water. Okay? For example, sugar and salt are soluble substances as they are soluble in water. And insoluble substances are those which do not dissolve themselves completely in a solvent. For example, sand and chalk in water, it cannot be dissolved completely. That is why they are called as insoluble substances. Okay? And students, there are different ways to separate substances from a solution. There are different ways to separate substances from the solution. There are many ways in which we can separate substances from a solution. See, soluble substances can be separated by heating the solution. The soluble substances, the substances which are soluble, they can be separated from the solution by heating. How can the soluble substances can be separated? They can be separated from the solution by heating. For example, see, salt can be separated from the salt solution by heating the salt solution. When you mix salt with water, you can separate that salt from water by heating, by boiling the water. And what happens when you boil the water changes into vapor and it gets evaporated. And the salt that is mixed into the water, it remains down. It remains on the container. It doesn't get evaporated. Water evaporates on heating and the salt particles are left behind. The water will evaporate on heating and the salt particle will be left behind. So this is the process to separate soluble substances by heating. Okay, and how is this insoluble substances separated? The insoluble substances can be separated from a solution by the process filtration, sedimentation and decantation. To separate insoluble, the substances which cannot be dissolved completely into water. These substances can be separated by the process of filtration, sedimentation and decantation. Okay? See students, these are the different ways by which we can separate the substances from the solution. The first one is sedimentation, where you can see there is a beaker, that means a container. water and sand. Water and sand, it is a insoluble solution. Yes or no? It is an insoluble substance where the water is mixed with sand and the sand is not completely dissolved. Then how can you separate it? Okay. And the next one is decantation. That is the process of decantation. And the third one is filtration. Okay. So let us read out what are these processes. How can we separate the substance from a solution by the process of filtration, sedimentation and decantation. So students, the first process of separating insoluble substances from a solution is filtration. Now what is this process? In filtration, a solution containing insoluble substances is passed through a filter paper. On doing so, the liquid passes through the filter paper while the insoluble substances get retained on the filter paper. What is this process? Suppose you are mixing some insoluble substance into water and you want to separate that insoluble substance from the water. What will you do? You will use the process of filtration. And in this process, what happens when you take a filter paper into a funnel, okay, into a filtering funnel, and you pour that solution of the insoluble substances, what happens? The clean water, the water will pour down and the precipitate or the insoluble substance will be left into the filter paper. Okay, the water will pour down into the funnel or into the container and the rest of the filtrate, that means the insoluble substance, will be left behind in the filter paper. So this is the process of filtration. Can you see the picture? Liquid and insoluble solids. First it is mixed. After that, in filter paper it is filtered into by using a filter funnel. The filtered solid residue means the leftover part, is left into the filter paper and the clean water, the clean liquid is poured into the funnel. So this is how you can separate the insoluble substance from a liquid using this process, filtration. Okay, see, there is an example. Sand and water can be separated by filtration. The solution of sand and water, it can be separated by the process of filtration. When you filter that sand and water solution, the sand remains in the filter paper and the water, it is poured down into the container. And an example of filtration used at homes is the separation of tea leaves from tea using strainer. Yes or no? When your mother prepares tea, she strained the tea leaves. Yes or no? We strain the tea leaves by using a strainer. What happens? The tea is poured into the cup and the tea leaves remains on the strainer. So that is also a process of filtration. Understood? Filtration is a process in which a solution containing insoluble substances is passed through a filter paper. On doing so, the liquid passes through the filter paper while the insoluble substances get retained on the filtered paper. Understood? And now students, what is the process of sedimentation? What happens in sedimentation? During sedimentation, the liquid is left undisturbed for some time. Suppose we are mixing the solution of sand and water. Okay, we are taking the solution of sand and water. And in this process, sedimentation, what we do? We keep that container undisturbed. That means we do not move that container and keep it aside into a place for some time. Later, what do you see? The sand particles, it settles down, leaving the clean water behind. The clean water is on the top and all the sand particles, it is settled down. Can you see the picture? You can make out, see, particles suspended in water. That means that is a mixture of sand and water. And after some time, when you keep that container aside into a place, you will see the sand particles get settled down, leaving the water undisturbed. Yes or no? The particles settles down and the water remains undisturbed. That means the water becomes clean. The heavy insoluble solids settle down at the bottom. Yes or no? So this process in which insoluble substances settle down is called sedimentation. The process in which the insoluble substances, when it settles down, this process is called as sedimentation. Sedimentation is the process where the heavy or the insoluble substance, it settles down into a solution. For example, you can take a solution of sand and water. When you put it aside for some time, the sand particles, it settles down. So this is the process of sedimentation. Understood? And now students, what is the process of decantation? Sedimentation and decantation are interrelated with each other. Okay. In sedimentation, what did we did? The solution of sand and water, the insoluble solution. Yes or no? We kept it aside, leaving it undisturbed. That means we did not disturb that solution. And what happened? The heavier particles, that means the insoluble particles, it got settled down. Yes or no? And the water was left behind. The clean water was left on the upside. So decantation is the process of pouring out the clear upper layer of liquid into another container without disturbing the insoluble solids after sedimentation. And this decantation is the process where that clean water which is on the top of the container, leaving the insoluble substance behind, that means the sand residue on that is settled in the container down, we just pour that clean water into the another container. Yes or no? Leaving the insoluble substance behind. And that the method of pouring the clean water into another container, that is called as decantation. Decantation and sedimentation are interrelated. In sedimentation, we left the substances undisturbed so that the sand particle settles down and the water gets cleared. And in decantation, that clear water is poured into another container without disturbing the sand particles down. Lifting it smoothly without disturbing the water, we pour the clean water into the another container. That is the process of decantation. For example, see, mud and water can be separated by sedimentation and decantation. The mixture of mud and water solution. Okay, the mixture of mud and water solution can be separated by the process of sedimentation and decantation, where the solution of mud and water is kept for some time so that the mud settles down and then the water can be poured into the another container by the process of decantation. So these are the different processes by which we can separate the different soluble and insoluble substances. Okay, so what did we study today? We studied about the matter. Yes or no? We studied about matter. What is matter? Anything that has mass and occupies space is called as matter. And there are three different states of matter. Those are solid, liquid and gas. Okay. And what are solid? Solid are substances in which the particles are very closely packed. And they have fixed shape and they are hard and rigid. For example, pencil, book, chair, etc. And what are liquid? Liquid are substances where the particles are not very closely packed. Liquids do not have a fixed shape and they can flow. And they can take the shape of the container in which they are kept. For example, water, milk, juices. And gas. Gas are the substances where the particles are very loosely packed. That means the gas do not have a fixed shape. Okay. And they can occupy the spaces. They can occupy all the spaces that is available. For example, air, Okay, air is also a mixture of gas which contains oxygen, nitrogen and carbon dioxide. And fluids include both liquid and gases. Okay, then there is also changes of state. The states of matter can change themselves. They can change from solid state to liquid state, from liquid to gas, and from gas to liquid and liquid to solid. Okay, there are different processes by which the states of matter can change their form. Those are melting, vaporization, condensation and solidification. In melting, the solid is changed into liquid. Then in vaporization, the liquid is changed into gas. Okay. And in condensation, the gas is changed into liquid. And in solidification, the liquid changes into solid. Okay. Then what are solute, solvent and solution? This solute, solvent and solution are related with the liquid. This word are related with liquid. Solute are substances which dissolve themselves, and solute are substances in which the solute are dissolved, and both solute and solvent together makes a solution. Understood? Then there are the different ways of separation of substances. There are different substances like soluble and insoluble substances. Soluble substances are those that dissolve completely into the solvent, and insoluble substances are those which do not dissolve themselves completely into the solvent. And there are different ways to separate substances from a solution. Okay, the soluble substance can be separated by the process of heating, and the insoluble substances can be separated by the process of filtration, sedimentation and decantation. Understood? So students, this is all for this chapter. In the next class, I will give you the question answers of this chapter. Till then, you study well at home and I will see you in the next class.